Starting to see a conspiracy been fooling me when I watch TV. Their manufactured views all over the news. It's giving me the blues, and it's time to choose. Starting to wake up from this sleep, from all the lies they spread that run so deep. But I will laze no more. Who are they fighting for? It isn't me. But now I see there is a new world order, but we're not invited. So much blood and murder from the drones unsighted. World War III is haunting me. I've got to find a way to save my family. The human race has lost its way. We put our trust in science, but it's us who pay. Used to be civilized, but we've been compromised. We're on a one-way train. We've got to break this chain. Starting to see that we should be free. The powers that be want a piece of me. Should I do what they say or tell them go away? What is the price for freedom? 'Cause it sure ain't free. The time has come to raise the bar. There'll be nowhere to hide if there's a third world war. So let your voice be heard and let your heart decide to stand and fight for freedom while you've still got time. Wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up. Stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up. Wake up, wake up. The time has come to fight. Wake up, wake up. Don't waste another night. Stand up, stand up. What are you waiting for? Stand up, stand up. Oh, they're gonna soon be at your door. Right, there we go. My mic was muted. Sorry about that, everybody. Welcome to Raconteurs News this Tuesday evening. It's the 24th of November 2020. It's a couple of days after the anniversary of the JFK assassination. No doubt many people will have marked that in some way. Whether it's just a thought that goes through your mind. I know it was on mine, and so I put my my Facebook profile page profile picture to one of him, and I don't know whether you like him or not, but I certainly do. But anyway, welcome to tonight. It's Tuesday, and we are going to be talking some right good stuff because I've got a right good mate here. Somebody, there we go. Ben, if you want to unmute your mic. Good evening to you, Ben. Ben Emlyn Jones, author, former hospital. It's a shame you're not an hospital porter anymore. We'd had somebody else inside. But good evening to you. How are you?
I'm not bad, thanks, Jason. It's great to be back on the show again. Really good to see you again. I'm sorry we can't meet up face to face because, of course, normally we'd be meeting up in Holmfirth and places like that, and we can't because we're all stuck at home. But thank goodness for technology that brings us together.
It's certainly, yeah, and that's what they're pushing, really. I mean, they're really pushing that. On the TV, the adverts, these tracking devices. So you put all you have is a little camera thing or whatever, and it tracks your movements across the room. So they're doing all that sort of thing, and it's very 1984. So how are you finding lockdown, and what's your thoughts on it all?
No, I'm still working, which is something. I'm glad of that. I mean, I know a lot of people who aren't, and they're fed up with it. And they moan about work when they have to go there, but when they don't have it, it's a bit of a drag, and they want to get back to it. But I'm working shorter hours than I normally would, like a lot of people are. I miss the conference circuit. I miss being able to travel because I'm used to that. I'm used to traveling a lot and seeing lots of people, and I've missed not having that opportunity. I miss not doing that. And the last conference I went to was the RawCon in Research and Witness Convention in Hull, which was in February. And that's the first and only conference of 2020, as far as I know. When they're going to start up again, I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of drag. But on a looking at the bigger picture, I think this is a very sinister and really quite astonishing development in the push towards greater and greater authoritarianism, which is, of course, what the whole COVID-19 lockdown is about. It's not about the disease. The disease is just the excuse. The government wants to stretch its tyrannical muscles, and to do so, it needs a reason. Problem, reaction, solution, as David Icke calls it. And this is this is probably the most extreme example of that I've seen. Much more than 9/11. This has allowed the government to impose more and more regulations on people, control our movements, hyper-regulate the private sector, which has had devastating effects on the economy, centralize power within the state and within a few corporations, shut down small businesses, and of course, monitor us. You just mentioned the cameras.
Destroyed small businesses. It's destroyed small businesses, hasn't it? I mean, it's the it's the like someone spoke the Hegelian dialectic. Like you said, problem, reaction, solution, and for people like us, Ben, who for years and years and years have known that something like this was coming down the line, it's even a shock to our system, isn't it?
Very much so. I mean, I always knew there was a time would come when the powers that shouldn't be would try to advance their agenda very quickly and take risks and basically go for broke, double or quits kind of thing. And I always suspected it would be some kind of major war, like a very large terrorist attack followed by a major war. It would even possibly be a fake alien invasion at one point. I thought it would be that. But it seems they've achieved it with something far less obtrusive and far less, I suppose, imposing. And it's just a simple little disease. And unfortunately, it has worked on a lot of people. I mean, there's a new vaccine coming out now, as everyone seems to be falling on the floor, worshipping, as this is the key to freedom. We now have a vaccine which supposedly will make us immune. It has a 90% chance of making people immune, even though apparently if you catch the illness, the immunity only lasts for a very short time. So the antibodies die off very quickly when you catch the illness. I've actually had COVID-19, I believe. I'm still.
Yeah, I remember right at the very beginning. I think you said that. I remember you saying on one of your shows. I do watch your shows, believe it or not, but I do remember you saying you were feeling ill and saying that you didn't think it was anything to do with coronavirus or anything like that. But was that the time that you believed that you had it?
I think I had it. I mean, I've never had a viral screening. I don't want to go for tests and things like that, so I can't prove that I had coronavirus. But my symptoms were very typical, including the loss of taste and smell and things like that. So, which leads me to believe I actually did have COVID-19. What that means for me, though, I mean, they'll probably still find some excuse to try and give me the vaccine. Up to 49% of people are saying they would immediately have the vaccine and they would support the government making it compulsory for other people, which is horrific. I mean, this is forced medication. And this is something that would be unthinkable if it hadn't been for all this horror, fear propaganda that have been put out by the media. Do this now or you're going to hurt my granny. You're going to kill my granddad. All these other things.
It's all emotion-based rhetoric, isn't it? You protect the little things you do. Protect the little things that you love and things like that, and all this. But the irony is Colgate's got this new advert out that says your smile is you. I mean, Jesus Christ!
They know how to hit us. They really know how to hit us where it hurts, don't they? I mean, they're really quite they're sophisticated, really crafty. Actually, if it's either children or it's old people, they tend to sort of play a moral blackmailing card on us. And I mean, they will. There was a time when they said, "Oh, don't put your children in any danger," and they would have, like, do you remember the adverts where they had a little kid lying on the top of a cliff or in a lion's den, and they'd say, "This is what you're doing if you don't get your children vaccinated."
Wow.
And
oh, I didn't see that.
no, it was a long time ago. But there's what they're going to do is, I doubt if they'll be able to push through a law which actually makes it compulsory. What they'll do is they'll put so many conditions on it that it'll be impossible to live without it. So, for example, you can't travel to this country or that country unless you have a vaccine, which means you can't go on holiday anymore abroad. You can't go and visit your relatives abroad. Things like that, or it may even be you can't ride a train unless you're vaccinated. There may be some kind of mark, some kind of badge you can wear if you've been vaccinated, or the other way around, some kind of armband indicating you haven't been. So we'll have probably people like us will be in leper colonies at the edge of town, the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There's been generally, I get the feeling that the Illuminati, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, are really lashing out now. They're panicking. They're taking risks. Very bad. I mean, look at the election that's just happened. They've basically exposed themselves, and I don't think they care. Now, that's a good sign. It's a sign that they know their agenda is in trouble, which should give us confidence.
Yeah, it is in it does seem to be in trouble. But it seems the one step further we take forward, we're sort of taking 3 steps back. You know, we got Brexit, okay, fine. You know, that came through. We voted for Brexit, and we've still not got it. I mean, it's 4 years later. It's fucking Brexit's like, if like Brexit's like COVID, we'll get it in 4 years' time.
Well, technically, we have left the EU now. That happened on January the 31st. However, we're still going through these negotiations, and Boris Johnson, who seemed to be quite a positive figure 12 months ago, is now he's completely transformed. He's changed. Obviously, I think that somebody has some kind of leverage on him. I think probably somebody is controlling him. Yeah,
he's one of the boys, isn't
he? Yeah, he's someone's got some kind of way of manipulating him, and he's just now cucking, to use a word expression, on almost everything now, which means at the end of these negotiations we're going to be in a much weaker position. And don't be surprised if before the next general election a rejoin alliance emerges, probably Labour, Lib Dems, SNP, things like that. That's the plan, I think, to get us back into the EU.
Well, I thought right at the very beginning, I thought that it was going to be a situation where our economy, because it's dropped by 20%. I mean, that's unheard of. Our economy, and bear in mind, most of the economy that is based in London, and is just made up paper trading crap and all that. So 20% is a big chunk of our economy to go. So I thought at the beginning, this may be a way to get us back into Europe, saying we're going to bail everybody out, but as a single nation, we can't afford to do that. And the European Central Bank is going to bail out all the other European countries. You know, so I did think that at the beginning. It's just a really weird situation that we find ourselves in.
That, I think, is exactly what they're going to offer us. That's what the Rejoin Alliance, should it happen, it'll probably have some name like that, is going to be exactly like that. It's going to be. They're going to be all kinds of good reasons why we should simply rejoin the EU. We can't survive outside it, and God knows what Boris is going to say about that. He's probably going to go along with it. I mean, the way he's acting at the moment. And so, yeah, I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic is obviously it's not just for that purpose, but that's one of the things it does. That's one of the purposes of it having, because this has caused essentially a depression. There's a massive slump in the economy now caused by this pandemic, because of economic activity is kind of ground. It's kind of like in caretaker mode at the moment. It's like so until that ends, we're going to be stuck like this. There's not going to be a recovery. And you can bet that they're going to make the recovery as difficult as possible. We now have a guy who's trying to be president of the United States, Joe Biden, who one of his pledges is to put the United States into a complete lockdown. If he gets away with it, because he's very obviously he hasn't won the election, he's pretending to, then we're going to see United States, one of the world's primary economies, collapsing, which will have a knock-on effect everywhere.
What are you making of all that? I mean, Joe Biden's obviously the media are claiming Joe Biden has won, and I'm sick of clicking off when I go on Facebook or anything like that, and if there's a Trump story or Trump said something, and then underneath it will have this like box that will say the predictions are that Joe Biden's going to win and yada yada yada. And I'm sick of clicking them off because I think the more you click them off, the less they're going to use them. So, but how do you see that? How do you see that? What's your view of that? And how do you see it panning out eventually?
Well, basically, what's happened is really exactly what President Trump himself predicted. I mean, it's great that there's a US president who's kind of on our side. He's a loony like the rest of us, which is it's no longer that fringe to be a conspiracy theorist. But he said from the start, he said there was going to be an attempt to rig this election. He said they were going to use postal ballots. He said he actually put up advertisements for people during the election night saying, if you see anything suspicious, please let us know. And people did. In fact, the amount of suspicious element was actually far more obvious than I thought it would be. But the media, you're right. I mean, about the way the media is portraying this, because the opinion polls put super Joe Biden like 10 points ahead of Trump all the way leading up to the election. Now, this is unheard of in the United States because the US is notoriously split 50-50 on politics. There are two governing parties, the Democratic Party, the GOP, the Grand Old Party, and they were like there's usually about 2 to 3 points in it. Most elections in the US are very close. We had Joe Biden, this massive, passionate, great spiritual and moral leader, apparently, knocking America off the fence. Now, if you look at the bloke talking, he can hardly string a sentence together. The bloke can hardly stand up straight. He's one of the most uninspiring politicians, the most humdrum, staid, normal, and uninspiring politicians that's ever existed. The biggest crowd he got for one of his rallies was 2,000 people, and that was in Philadelphia, which is one of his heartlands. He managed to get 2,000 people to come out, and most of them were sitting in their cars sounding their horns. A few people were allowed closer, but they had to sit in socially distancing circles.
Yeah,
it's pathetic. His venues are pathetic. Trump, at the same time, was getting like 60,000+ people in everywhere he went. He had massive stadiums he was filling. The merchandise on Amazon for Trump, that was selling like more than 10 times what the Joe Biden merchandise was selling. The reviews and the whole the reviews on Amazon and the ratings, you could tell Trump was far more popular. Yet when the election came down, I watched it. I sat up. By the time I went to bed, it was like about 6:30 in the morning, which is like late at night in the US time. It looked like Trump was winning. I wake up in the afternoon and find, oh no, they've just suddenly discovered another 800,000 Joe Biden votes in just the key spots that Biden needs to win. Let's go through a few stats here. This is someone just sent this to me, actually. I've been looking into this. It's absolutely true. In order to believe that Joe Biden won, you have to believe that Biden won a record low 16.7 of the counties in the United States, but had most of the votes of any candidate ever. 10 million more than Obama did in 2008, a previous record, just under 70 million votes. Now, Trump broke that by almost 5 million. Prior to Obama, there had never been more than 125 million votes cast. The totals counted in 2008 were 130 million. 2016 was just under 130 million. In 2020, up to it's claimed 152 million votes were cast. Biden claims nearly 80 million votes, despite barely having campaigned. And we just talked about how awful his campaigning was. Voter turnout for every election of the past 100 years fell within 2 standard deviations. In 2020, it was 3 standard deviations above. This should happen roughly once every 2,666 elections. That's a 99% indicative of fraud in terms of circumstantial evidence alone. Or the Republicans won all 27 contested House seats, but lost the presidency. The last election where that happened was in the very heavily fraud-riddled election of 1960. The winner has always carried 15 or more of the 17 bellwether counties, as they're called, but Biden won just one of them. Trump had the highest... Oops, I've got to go back. Sorry. Trump had the highest percent of non-white votes of any Republican in history. Biden was down more than 10% in New York, but up huge in very specific cities, only in the battleground states. 450,000 ballots in the battleground cities had votes only for Biden. This is amazing. So entire constituencies were 100% for Biden voting. Now that shouldn't be possible.
It isn't possible, is it?
Yeah, and this is all going to court. I mean, don't believe the media. The media are now telling you, oh, it's all over. They've given up. Right? This is what you're hearing in the news today. Trump's given up. He's, it's just because a completely routine part of the transitional period over which he has no control has been arranged. That is 7.5 million funds given to Biden's for transition, right? That's completely routine. That's what you would expect. And Trump has gone along with it because he has no choice. And now, Trump's given up. The other thing, Trump apparently sacked one of his lawyers yesterday, Sidney Powell. Not true. She's simply now a freelance lawyer working for the campaign, working for the legal advice. She's not longer part of the official team. Again, this was just because she apparently retweeted Q or something. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the details were. But every time this happens, the media just trump it. Oh, Trump's given up. It's it. Because from the very moment, even the very moment in the morning, do you remember the very, very moment that when it was announced that Biden appeared to have most of the votes, it was all over every news that Biden had won. Biden was the new president, and he immediately formed what he called the office of the president-elect. Now, there's no such thing as the office of the president-elect. It doesn't exist. But wherever Biden goes, he has this big banner behind him saying office of the president-elect. President-elect is not a formal title at all. It's simply what...
So there isn't even an office, is there? I mean, it's not... Nobody does that. He's made that up. And it's like me it's like me having behind me the Death Star behind me and claiming to be Darth Vader.
Exactly. There's no such. It's a fiction. It's a political fiction that he has concocted. The president-elect is just a title, an informal title given to the person who won the election before their inauguration on January the 20th. So for 2.5 months between winning an election and being the president, you're called the president-elect. But Biden is now, it's all over the news that Biden is the president. He's been talked about as if he's already the president. Trump in the news has hardly been covered at all unless it's to denigrate him. The entire mainstream media is 100% against, 100% one-sided. If you go to the BBC, the only references to Trump is he's got no evidence for his claims, and it's we fact-check the president's claims.
I heard a lot of unfounded claims. I heard a lot of headlines saying President Trump has made unfounded claims, and it wouldn't have been the other way round. The other way round, it would have been these claims have come to light, but because it's Trump. And listen, I'm not a Trump fan. Right. In fact, I will say I am a fucking Trump fan. I really enjoy him being president. You're getting. You're perhaps not getting what it says on the tin, but you're getting summer. And Joe Biden but what he reminds me of is the old Spitting Image, where they used. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but they used to have Spitting Image, and there'd be Sir John Gielgud, and he'd be sat in a chair. He obviously a Spitting Image puppet. John Gielgud sat in a chair, and he'd be reading summer, and then suddenly a stick had come from side and go into him, and he'd go, and he'd wake up and then carry on. That's what Joe Biden, for me, I mean, like you said, there were masses of people. You couldn't get enough people into the Trump rallies. Yet the Biden ones, you wouldn't even smell a fart at a person sat next to you.
I was looking at the Biden. It's interestingly what you said that, because I was looking at the excuse me, I was looking at what the Biden supporters were saying. I do follow a few of these people on social media. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. And they were asking you, they were talking amongst themselves about what Biden represented to them, what he meant, what kind of vision did he create that gave them hope for the future of the United States of America. And the answer was, well, we get rid of the big orange Hitler. That was it. They were supporting him because he was against Trump. They weren't supporting him for any other reason other than that negative one, that he was not Trump and he was against Trump. That's the one and only sole reason anyone supported him. Now that is not, you can't motivate people on that to that extent. On that, people don't normally get behind political movements for negative reasons. You have to give people something positive. Hillary Clinton at least offered some kind of positivity to people. It was completely false, but she was a horrible globalist clone, just like her crooked husband. But she did offer some kind of positive message. Biden offered nothing. He was a walking ballot box, and he wasn't even that, because a lot of the ballots that went into his box were fake.
Yeah, and it seems that we've got instability in what people would say would be the most powerful nation on the planet. We've got instability there. I mean, the Chinese and the Russians must be lapping this up. I mean, it's Christmas for them already.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know what China are obviously very much behind Biden. I mean, they're really fond of him. Russia, I think, has a better relationship with Trump. Trump is actually it's interesting because, I mean, the United States it's not the global superpower it used to be. That's a fact, but it is still a major node. It's a major peak on the geopolitical landscape in this multipolar world. And what happens there still affects the whole world, regardless of what the other countries are doing. But what Trump did for people, for example, he for the first time, literally this century, he gave Americans the hope that they could actually get out of a wartime situation, because America's basically permanently been at war since 2001 with one nation or another. There's been a completely permanent war. This is very unpopular with people. No one likes it. In the armed forces, they can't stand it. Yet, for some reason, it's interesting. In the military vote in America was incredible, because there was a 40% shift to Biden, apparently. Can you believe it?
Well, they probably thought they were going to lose the jobs. That's probably what they were told.
They don't. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, Trump actually had no plans for any redundancies, any plans to reduce the Department of Defense budget and the military budget. What he planned to do, what he wanted to do, was try and stabilize certain areas, such as the Koreas in the Korean Peninsula, between the two nations of North and South Korea, and in the Middle East, especially with the various states and their sort of their Cold War attitude towards Israel. He was trying to stabilize that. If he has his way, then he could go down in history as a great peacemaker around the world. And in fact, by American standards, he's very much an isolationist and a pacifist. I think his plan is to use the military in accordance with the Kellogg-Briand Pact, that is, for defense in its non-Orwellian sense, which is very easy in the United States, because it's a very geographically isolated nation. It has allies within the rest of North America, Mexico to the south, Canada to the north, and people don't want it. If you're in the army or in one of the armed forces, being sent off to some God knows where in the world to engage in what's really not a war which anyone believes in, and then come home and commit suicide. A lot of them are committing suicide and things like that, and devastating nations around the world. I mean, who wants that other than the neocons? And the neocons hate Trump. Have you noticed that? People like David Frum and William Crystal, they hate Trump. They're 100% behind Biden. They're Republicans who are 100% behind Biden. It's
incredible, isn't it? I mean, it just makes you it makes you realize that where their actual allegiances lie. You know, it's not. It's personalities. And look, Trump, for me, Trump has been the most interesting president this century. I think Biden is a more older, more senile version of Bush, only obviously different.
Hmm.
You know, is it donkey, elephant? I can't remember which one's which. Which one is it? Is it which one's donkey? Which one's elephant?
I can't remember. I can't remember the symbolism of the states. I can't remember.
Yeah, but you know, it's this. He's been the most entertaining as far as I'm concerned. I really couldn't stand Clinton. I didn't really know why, but people did put me straight on Clinton many years later. But yeah, I mean, Trump's been the most entertaining. I will give him that, the most entertaining. And of course, as well, he did a lot of built a lot of bridges, particularly with North Korea, very early on as well. You know, when people, I mean, there were a lot of very early on. There were a lot of talk about, you know, from Trump about North Korea, and then they sort of made mates.
Trump is a product of that wonderful time period of 2016, which for just a few months, the Illuminati completely lost control of all the political structures of the earth. This is why we had Brexit. It was during that period we had the Brexit referendum. Then we had Trump coming in. Trump was a guy who was never meant to be president from the very start. From the moment he ran as a candidate, I was predicting that he would never make it. I said, this guy's got no... He's got no connections in terms of the formal structure of like Illuminati control. He's not part of any of these groups that Clinton and Bush and all the others were, and Obama. He's not, so he doesn't have the background. US president was literally the first political office he ever ran for. And I said to him, they'll never have him. He's too much of a man of the people. And when he won, and the deep state, the establishment just went crazy. They just completely lost it because their plan to put their chosen person was Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was told, you are going to be the president. We are engineering it. And that engineering failed and she couldn't get in. And they did everything they could to undermine him during the last 4 years. Do you remember there was the Steele dossier? Oh my God, he's working for the Russians. And then there was the impeachment, all this other stuff. And what we've seen with this fake election is the latest in this attempt to destroy him. Now, will it work? I actually, from what I've seen, I don't think it will. There's a lot of there's no guarantees, but I'm just look at what the amount of evidence that's come about. Look at how openly people are discussing it. It's still got to go to the Supreme Court. I'm pretty confident this is going to go Trump's way. But even whatever happens, I mean, this is a huge, huge cause. There's no real precedent for it. I can't predict exactly what's going to happen because there's no historical occurrence which you can like compare it with. We're just going to have to wait and see.
You could compare it to the 2000 election when Bush allegedly stole Florida, and which was a key state at that time. Which essentially won him the election, and that all went to court. And obviously, if you remember rightly, its brother was the governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, who's another one who's been, banded as a president. So I suppose you could the 2000 election, but I mean this is on a much larger scale. I mean, I think what they call it, do they call it the Rust Belt? You know, the one that goes right over the
it's the former industrial lands of the
Philadelphia.
Before all that industry was shipped out, like mining, steelworks, things like that. It's exactly the same as Britain. Britain has a Rust Belt. We have a Rust Belt across the North Country, and indeed in South Wales. That's. You're right about 2000. I mean, the 2000 was a contested election, but the scale, like you just said, the scale of it is incredible. First of all, I mean, Al Gore, who cares if it's Al Gore or Bush? They're both cut from the same cloth. Al Gore went on to be Mr. Climate Change, and that's what he's basically doing today. But this is very, very different because we have a non-deep state president, and they're trying to get rid of him. They want the country back. The Illuminati want the country back, and they're trying to take it back. And they're doing it so incompetently that everyone can see it. It's like they're not supposed to be this obvious. They're not supposed to add votes to they just decided to add votes to some of the totals in Wisconsin and in Minnesota and what's the other one? Michigan. They simply added votes. They just said, let's add a couple of votes. What they did, they added what they actually added was the equivalent of the population of Cardiff. Not the registered voters in Cardiff. The entire population of the capital of Wales was just simply added to Biden's total, almost instantly. Now, that's not something. I think they had some idea. Did they really believe we wouldn't notice? Did they think just everyone would just shrug? Oh, it's So yeah, this is a far more interesting contested election than the 2001. You know,
what about the watermarks in the ballots, the alleged watermarks in the ballots? I mean, anything on that? I've not heard about that for a long time.
No, I've heard that from several people. There's several people coming out saying that this is basically a sting operation. Trump had a secret sting operation with having like special radioactive watermarks in some of the ballots. If that is true, then it hasn't come out yet. It's not been formally announced. So therefore, we'll have to wait and see. Sean's just said something very interesting. Elections are a theatre. There's never been a free and fair election since the Vatican came up with the idea of secular governments as agents of the beast system when the church was losing its grip. You know, Sean, before 2016, I would have agreed with you. But since 2016, things have changed. The world has changed.
Yeah, but do you think we've been given them? Do you think we've been given them? And because it seems that Brexit were a huge part of where we are now. Because if you think about it, after Brexit, if Jeremy Corbyn had been pro-Brexit, the Labour Party would have won by a landslide, right? But it wasn't, was it? It were Boris who was supposed to be pro-Brexit, and that's why we've got a lot of places up here in Northern England that Labour heartlands that voted Conservative simply to get Brexit through, and then fucking find themselves after the vote. I suppose it's vote for the fucking beast, and then the beast just appears in 2020, and it's there, and it's stood in front of us. You know,
I was really hoping that Britain would go the same way as the States. I really did. After Brexit and after that election, which was incredible because, as you said, it just overturned, decades, in some cases, more than a century of tradition. Some people voted for the Tories since before those parties were even created. For the first time ever, they were voting for the Conservatives. And I really thought this is going to be the beginning of the populist Britain. And Boris is going to basically lead us out of the New World Order. Unfortunately, it hasn't. It seems like in Britain, they've managed to claw back the ground they lost, and most of the ground they've lost. Now, whether they'll continue to do that, I don't know. It could be Boris will find some way out of it. Maybe they got his wife and kid his fiance and kid in custody. I don't know. But what they're trying to do now in the States is do the same thing. They're trying to basically take the country back from the movement which freed it, even if just for a short time. But everyone can see it, though, Jason. That's the thing. I mean, I feel confident because it's not hidden anymore. And that's something we should be pleased of. It's, we're not fringe anymore, really. It's now become quite cool to be a conspiracy theorist. Would you agree? It's cool. We've got the President of the United States on our side, haven't we? I mean,
well,
tinfoil hats. Let's bring the tinfoil hats. Bring out a range of tinfoil hats, all the fashion companies.
I was out on my mobility scooter the other day, and I was getting wolf whistled by girls who were doing construction work. So perhaps that's a possibility. Somebody's put that somebody's put these two believe in politics. Now, look, we know, me and you, we know that it's a theatre, right? Well, but what I think Trump's trying to do is he's trying to bully in on that theatre and add a new role to this game, this play that's been going on, and he's gone in there and added a new role. Now, I want to ask you this question. I believe in politics because it's real and it's there. I don't believe that it has any effect at all, apart from bad effect on people, right? I believe that there are people that do enter politics that do want to do what is best for ordinary people, but they don't seem to get anywhere. But what I wanted to ask you, for fuck's sake, I got a
Mate, it's
question in
okay.
my head.
It's
I got a
okay.
question in my head, then it goes, that's what I wanted to ask you. A lot of people would say, Trump has had 4 years to drain the swamp, and he doesn't seem to have done that. I mean, what would your opinion on that be?
When Trump came up with the phrase "drain the swamp," he had no idea how deep and rancid the swamp really was. He had something of an idea. I think people had given him some clues, but he didn't really know. When he found out, it's a credit to him, actually, to his courage, that he didn't back down when faced with the full truth of how deep and rancid the swamp was. I think he did what he could as a president in the position of president. I mean, the office of president of the United States is sometimes called he's the most powerful man in the world, but actually the power of the US president is very limited, especially on domestic issues. The United States almost is founded. It's a very good system, actually. It's almost designed to prevent one person having too much power. There's a legislative assembly in terms of the bicameral Congress, where you have the Senate and the House of Representatives. There's the courts.
Yeah, the Senate's similar to our House of Lords, isn't it?
Yeah,
because Senate means senior. So yeah.
It's very similar. Yeah, they unlike Britain, they have an elected head of government and state, which is the president. We don't have an elected head of government. The head of government is just whoever happens to be the leader of the majority party in the House of Commons.
Yeah.
So it's a good system. I think he's done what he can. I mean, look, considering the limit, like I said, the limitations he has to face and the enemies he was up against, I think he did what he could. He rather like Kennedy, who was shot. Kennedy said, "I've got enemies all over the world and sitting right beside me," and they actually killed Kennedy. They haven't succeeded in doing that to Trump. On the subject of what you said earlier and what somebody was put in the comments, and the number of people I have coming up to me saying, Ben, can't you see it? Can't you see it? Trump is just another insider. Trump is just a part of the New World Order. He was meant to be president. They made it look like he was against the establishment, but it was just a deeper, more crafty trick because he's part of the establishment. And Brexit was meant to happen. The Illuminati wanted Brexit, but they made it look like they didn't, so they could fool people like you. They fooled you, Ben, but they haven't fooled me. Look how superior I am, Ben. I get that continuously. But I always ask these people, whenever people say that to me,
I'm in regular contact with Neil Sanders, so I know how you feel. You text me the other day, you text me the other day with an article from BBC and a couple of graphs and said, "Told you," and I texted him back a couple of days later and said, "Told me what? You sent me some graphs and a fucking BBC link." Yeah. Jesus Christ! Sorry. Go on, carry on.
It's all right. I haven't had a run-in with Neil Sanders, but I have written articles and I've made videos challenging him on his points. But you see, what I always say to these people, I said, okay, by what criteria would you say that the New World Order was over? Because according to the logic of these people, the New World Order can never be seen to end. Absolutely everything in the world that happens, according to these people, is exactly what the New World Order wants. They have total and utter power already. And there's absolutely nothing anyone can do about it, because if it looks like they're losing, they're not really losing. They're actually winning. They're just being very, very crafty about it and making it look like they're losing. So, you can imagine this in the post-Illuminati world, in a stable post-Illuminati world. These people will still be peeping around corners going, my goodness me, aren't they crafty? They literally, there was no condition under which the New World Order would ever be seen to end. I mean, I had an interesting discussion with one of these people once. This person's a big Andrew Johnson fan. So I said to her, well, because she was tackling me on this very issue, saying Trump's just another insider. And I said, okay, how would you define the end of the New World Order? How would you know when the New World Order ended? And she said, if I switched on the 10 o'clock news and I saw Dr. Judy Wood being interviewed, this is the 9/11 researcher.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, the thing is that I must say I do agree with you. If Dr. Judy Wood was on the 10 o'clock news, we could safely say the New World Order had a bit of a snafu in the engine room. However, do you believe that would happen spontaneously? She said, what do you mean? What do you mean, Ben? If that happened, it would have to be the end result of a process. It's not going to happen just out willy-nilly off the top of that. It's not going to bootstrap itself into being. then you're not going to see Judy Wood appearing just like that on the news. It would happen after a long process. And I said, do you think it's possible that right now we're in the beginning stages of that process? And she said, but I don't know what you mean, Ben.
Well,
So,
what you've got to remember is that we're living in an age where we can still, in living memory, remember Ceausescu and what happened to his family and what have you. And I mean, the people will only go so far. I'm not advocating violence at all. We don't do that on Raconteurs News, but I think it's the only way that it's going to end. I think that is the only way. Mussolini said it in one of his speeches. Blood alone moves the wheels of history. I just think that that's probably where it's going to end up.
I hope not, and I wouldn't advocate anyone to break the law. However, he's got a point. I mean, Mussolini has a point there. These things often do descend into civil war when normal political process breaks down. You get like the von Clausewitz, who said war is a continuation of politics by other means. If people can see transparently that the political system is not working, that, for example, that the rule of law doesn't exist, free speech doesn't exist, the political democratic process doesn't exist, what's the response? Because you can't vote. If Biden gets away with this, I don't think he will, but if he gets away with it, every American is going to know, whether even deep down, I think they all suspect this, even if they don't admit it, that voting is no point voting, because every election is just a theater. And if you see someone good, you may be lucky enough, the system might break down to allow that person to take office, but they will be undermined and turfed out by a conspiracy. Now, under those situations, what chance do you do? This is how wars do start. Civil wars start when we're faced with this situation, when the powers that be put us in a position where force is the only way forward. So I hope that won't happen. I don't want to see that happen, but it could be that is how it is going to end, and we will have to wait and see. If that's the case, then of course I know whose side I'm going to be on in this war. I'll be on the side of the free side, of the freedom, but
on the side of good.
Yeah, well, interesting. You said about the Ceausescu. Now, what's interesting is that when change does come, it can come very quickly. I mean, the fall of the Soviet bloc was never intended. The Rockefeller Foundation put Gorbachev in because Gorbachev actually attended a Rockefeller Foundation meeting in 1979. Where it was basically, I'm sorry, no citation right now. I'm going by memory. I can't remember where I heard that. Where he was going to be the Soviet president and was selected in 1984. And of course, the moment he came in, he tried to reform the Soviet Union. He came up with words like glasnost and perestroika. These Russian words became neologisms in almost every language on earth. Yeah. Didn't work. The Soviet system completely collapsed. The Soviet Empire collapsed. But when that happened, no one's predicting this, you see. They predicted the end of the Cold War. They predicted a reform of the Soviet Empire. They never predicted its end. And when the end came, it came very quickly. Change often, what you have punctuated equilibrium, where things will appear to be the same and the same and the same. And you think, when the hell is anything ever going to change? When are things going to get better? And then very suddenly, it'll very suddenly change. You're literally within a couple of months, before you know it, you're in a completely different world. And maybe it's something to do with the 100th monkey effect. I don't know if did I discuss the 100th monkey effect with you before?
No, go on. Give us a rundown of that.
That's a very interesting thing. Lyle Watson, famous South African scientist, was studying these monkeys in Japan. And it's very interesting because people often say, what I often hear from people in the truth movement is they're very close to despair because they think, well, people aren't waking up quickly enough. People don't, we're not reaching enough people. And we need to get most of the people to understand what we're talking about with 9/11, with the vaccines and things like that, in order for change to come. And I always cite the 100th monkey experiment because what happened was these monkeys lived on this little island, and they were given these potatoes to eat by the scientists studying them. And the monkeys ate the potatoes; they liked them, so they kept eating more. Then one of them decided to wash them in the sea to wash the grains, the grit and grains off them when they've been dug up, and discovered that when you wash them in the sea, they get salty and they taste better. So another monkey watched the first one doing that, and they thought, I'll try that. Copied it, washed it, and think, yeah, that's good. So little by little, the monkeys were watching the other monkeys who'd learned this trick, Monkeys, of course, don't have a spoken language. They can't relate this information through spoken language. And Watson calculated it would probably take a couple of months for all the monkeys on the island to learn this trick. What he found was what he didn't expect it. He said it took about a couple of days for a certain number of monkeys to learn this trick, and then it turned out that every monkey on the entire island, and indeed the neighboring islands from whom they had no contact because monkeys can't swim, on the neighboring islands, they also learned the trick. It's almost like a critical mass was reached, and the moment that critical mass of knowledge within a certain percentage of the population was reached, that knowledge seemed to get into what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, by which it can be transmitted to the entire species. And Watson calculated that figure was roughly 1% of monkeys. So this is where you get the phrase 100th monkey. If that's the case, and the same can be said for other species like humans, you don't have to red pill every single individual. You don't even have to red pill the majority. Maybe just 1% is enough to get people to transform us on a consciousness level. And let's face it, we now have the president of the United States. He's now a tinfoil hat wearing loony like the rest of us. Now that's a pretty big ally, isn't it? That is going to push us very close to some tipping point, if there is a tipping point. So don't give up, guys. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. I believe it's going to be fine. I think we're heading in the right direction.
I mean, when people talk about a collective consciousness, I always imagine we've had it sort of knocked out of us. We probably had it at some point. We probably did have it, probably still do, but that's been suppressed, in order for us to be good humans and do what we, do as we are told. But the concept of collective consciousness, if you look at like a great big massive flock of birds that do these great big displays, and nobody's banging into each other. You're not seeing them knocking into each other and knocking each other out and falling into the sea. You're seeing this collective thing where they all, I don't know whether it's because their lives are their lives aren't as long as ours. The time seems to be longer, and so what seems to us to be really fast is perhaps to them, because their lives aren't as long, is really slow, and it's really easy to do. Something that's really easy to do. But as a collective consciousness, I think that's animals. We can look at animal kingdom and learn plenty.
It's a remarkable seeing these birds, actually, these huge flocks of birds. And they appear to move. It looks like almost like a piece of material with waves and patterns in it. It's like they have some kind of hive mind. And Carl Jung talked about this, and other researchers have talked about this, how there is some kind of collective consciousness that links all minds. It's very, very interesting. And a lot of the propaganda of the New World Order, which is designed to suppress that. A lot of what we see in schools, what we see in the media, what we see everywhere around the world is about keeping us in our pens. To do that, they have to isolate us from each other, drive us apart, split up men and women with feminism, drives women away from men, get the children into care, as Brian Gerrish has been talking about this a lot. Get the social workers to get the kids into care, and so isolate us all into little pens, and then feed us information that's going to confuse us and distort us and demoralize us to make us believe there's no hope. Our only hope, the only relationship we should have, is that between the individual and the state. In other words, you love Big Brother, to quote George Orwell, and there'll be no love except love of Big Brother. And the family, the nation, all these other things would just disappear. Literally, there'd just be this singular relationship between the individual and the state. And so if they can do that, the Illuminati know through their study of psychology and indeed spirituality, they know if they do that, if they succeed in doing that, they can manipulate the collective unconscious and create their own 100th monkey effect. Now, the question is, can they succeed or can we succeed? And I think we're heading in the direction where we can succeed, because I don't think the deep state will be taking these kinds of risks and exposing themselves the way they are if everything was going their way. So Neil Sanders is wrong there. He's wrong.
Listen, I have Neil on quite a lot. He's really. I find him an interesting guy to have an argument with. I'm able to have an argument with him, and there'll be no ill feeling afterwards. And there's very few people that you can do that with. So I really enjoy speaking to. It was just he sent me this message all day, and I just thought, and then he went, "I told you," and I thought, "Told me what? This is a fucking something from BBC." Who we everybody would say, everybody who's awake, who knows anything, knows the BBC's full of shit. Even Alex Belfield. I don't know if you see Alex Belfield. He's down there in Nottingham, and I watch his channel sometimes, but he's like having a right go at BBC all the time. So it's crap. So anything from BBC is crap. Then it's two graphs, and I don't even know what I'm looking at. And he's told me, "Oh, I told you." And I went, "You told me what?" I can't remember how it panned out, but I must get him on again in a few weeks' time, and we can have another dust up. Perhaps a Christmas a Christmas show might work, and unless you want to come on and with him and challenge him on some things, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I could do that if you want like a round table. I'm happy to do that. I mean, I've got nothing against Neil. I think his work on mind control is excellent. I mean, I'm not sure I can conjure all the facts up at the top of my head that I need at the time I need them. He seems to be very, very good at that. But I'll come on your show anytime, Jason. I love being on your show.
Yeah, well, I'll see if I can do that. We'll do that sometime around Christmas. I'm sure Neil will hear this, and if he does, I'll get in touch with him, and we'll see. We'll see if we can we can get it together. I think it'll be a very interesting show. I think
it should be. Yeah. I'll do the best I can. Yeah, but I'll do the best I can with it. I'm sure we'll have fun either way. Even if I don't have an answer to every single point he makes.
Well, you're never going to, because he always comes up with these studies that no cunt's ever heard of by somebody who's like an eminent this, that, and other, and it's. I'm somebody who likes an argument. So why I like having him on, and if you can have an argument, you can have an argument. So I'm gonna see if I can sort that out. That should be an interesting show. If you're listening to Raconteurs News and you're watching us in colour, myself, Jason Holmes, and Ben Emlyn Jones is my guest this evening. You'll stop for the second hour, won't you, Ben? You were.
I'm happy. It's 2 hours, is it? I always assume you're going to be on 2 hours. So
Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah. We do 2 hours. Well, I do 2 hours. Used to be we, but now it's an I. I've been left. All my co-presenters have all left me and gone. So I must be doing somewhat bad.
Well, I'm keeping the show going. I'm glad you keep the show going. That's cool.
Well, it's got to be kept going, hasn't it? I've got enough people. I've got listen. Look at Webber, laughing his arse off at me. You're listening to Raconteurs News. Well, you were saying that earlier on in the show and before the show that you've missed a lot this year of and I know that there's a lot of people that will have missed a lot of this stuff. Being able to go to meet people, going to the conference, the UFO conference at Umfirth, and going to perhaps, I don't know if Birmingham Buffon do some, or you go there or anything, but I know you went to Hull and you do talks everywhere. How has it affected you this year? I know you said you've only been to one, but I mean, has that really been something that's really affected you? I think it sent Mark Devlin insane.
Yeah, I think it's affected all of us. Mark is clearly he's doing a lot more video work now than live talks, and I think all of us are. What's happened is I have managed to get together with people to do like online webinars and things like that. It's good we got this technology. It's a good job that, thank goodness, the lockdown didn't happen 40 years ago. I feel sorry for the people back then who just had their little TV and their phone. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing talks for people like the East Anglia UFO Group, for Truth Seekers Northeast, and the London. I forgot what they're called now, but there's a group in London I've done a talk for. So I'm quite happy to do online talks for anyone who wants me to do one. It's not the same as being there, of course, and meeting people face to face and going down the pub afterwards, of course. But I've been doing online talks. But generally, it's been very dismal, Jason, not to be able to go to Holmfirth and meet up with you at the various conferences. I know Gary Heseltine actually decided not to go ahead with the 2020 UFO Truth Magazine conference before the lockdown kicked off. But there would have been others we could have met at. And there was going to be the last Probe conference in Lytham St. Anne's, Lancashire. That was going to take place in March, and it didn't. There was going to be the Weird Weekend North, which is always great fun. That didn't happen. And there was another one. It was Lapis as well, the Lancashire aerial phenomena. Pubs, says the Webster report. I remember the pubs, yeah. What are pubs? Well, a lot of them are shut down. Even the ones hundreds of years old are gone. It's like, oh, it's depressing. It's just it's really ripping the heart out of the country. And, I think every country is feeling this now. And the conference circuit, I do hope will start up again. I want to be able to go and meet up with people and have fun. I want to be able to speak. I love speaking on stage. I love meeting with people. I don't charge anything actually for talking. Apart, I ask people to cover my expenses, accommodation, travel. But of course, doing online talks, that doesn't count. So you can basically hire me for nothing if you want me to do an online talk for your organization. Just let me know, because it won't cost you a penny. So.
As now he's proving, because it's not cost me a penny. I can promise you that Ben has not charged me anything for appearing on the show tonight, and vice versa. I've not charged him anything for coming on. I've got this boil on my stump.
Oh man!
I had this boil on my stump, right outside, and so last night I was in bed. And I was sort of having to be on one side, because if I was flat, there was pressure on it and were really painful. And if I got onto that side, it was really, really, really painful, and I had to get onto my front. Anyway, so I'd got some stuff on it, magnesium sulfate. My wife's just shouted that from the bedroom next door. Magnesium sulfate on it, and I put it on last night, and I put thing on anyway, a thing over the top of it, a plaster. And today it was still really painful anyway. When I woke up and I started pissing about, and I ripped it off. Oh, and there were just blood everywhere and gush and goo and everything. But it, like a relief. And I've had some Savlon on it, so throughout the day it's got better and better. But it just gave me a bit of a kick then. But that's a little insight into my life. Boils on your stump and all that sort of thing.
So I mean, it makes me think I'm lucky. I'm not going to complain when I get a bit of a cough and things like that with COVID-19. I know you're not well, and obviously I hope you feel better soon, mate. I really do.
I'm absolutely fucking top drawer.
Oh, good.
I'm absolutely top drawer. I've just been told that whatever it is that's caused all this, I don't have it anymore.
Oh,
so
good.
I shouldn't be having any more episodes. So it's cost me a leg, but I'm still here. 2 heart attacks, 3, 4, 5 operations, a leg amputation above knee, and listen, I'll take that. I'm still alive. So
you're a gutsy guy. You're a gutsy guy. You still smile, still be cheerful.
You've got to smile, haven't you? I mean, but I've got to put a mask over it now. If I go out, I can't smile at anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Smiling's going to be a weapon of mass destruction soon, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that it's really weird. Some people say, that the mask is a part of that, because, of course, the masks which everyone's supposed to wear are meant to they're meant to like protect you apparently from infection. They don't actually. They're simply the mask. Obviously, virus particles are they're minute virus particles. They're microscopic, far smaller than a bacteria, and they just pass through. They pass through the fabric of a mask the same way that water in a tea bag just passes through the tea bags to get the tea out. It's tea flavor. So it's exactly the same thing. What they do is they do make it more difficult to talk to each other. I used to wear masks all the time at the hospital when I was a porter there, because when I was a theatre porter, you used to have to wear those masks anyway. And there was a breakdown of communications as a result of not being able to see all your facial expressions. Now, I didn't know this, but apparently, because they cover the nasolabial folds, and that's these two things here, which connect your mouth and your nose. They're called the nasolabial folds, and apparently they produce what's called micro expressions, which give you subconscious clues about what another person is trying to communicate. And it's an important, very, very important part of social interaction.
Yeah.
I didn't know what these things
were. The person that's doing them don't know they're doing them.
Yeah.
They're reacting to the person that they're meeting or interacting with, and the person doesn't necessarily pick up on that consciously, but they will pick up on it subconsciously. I do understand what you mean. Yeah, these micro expressions. I play a lot of poker. I used to play a lot of poker live, and I used to use micro expressions quite a lot. I could tell what people had got by just little tells.
This is why poker players, they wear sunglasses. It's because eyes in particular give away micro expressions, but the rest of your face does too. And it is a very it's very revealing, and the mask cuts that down. The mask cuts that out. But it's another way of driving wedges between people. You can't go out and meet friends. You can't go to the pub anymore. You can't go, you can't arrange to go on dates with a woman if you're a single man, or a man if you're a single woman. You can't do these things anymore. You can't even see a family sometimes. I mean, did you see that horrible video of a woman being arrested because she tries to take her grandmother out of the old people's home, and the police round her up and they arrest her. They arrest her and her own mother, who's I
remember that one. Yeah, that were absolutely disgraceful. It was abhorrent, weren't it? That way, the woman was 70, and it were a mother. They were trying to. They'd not seen her for 9 months either, and her mother were obviously struggling. And because if you are being able to go and see your mum, and take her things, she might like take certain things, take things and stuff like that. It'll be easier to get through, but they've made it so that now your mother is not your property.
Yeah,
she doesn't belong to you, and there's something inherently wrong about that. I mean, is the closest thing we've got, isn't it?
When I see the policemen like handcuffing these people, I sometimes I want to ask them, look, is this what you became a policeman for? Did you join the police force to handcuff people who do completely harmless things? And how many of them really would have said, oh, yeah, this is what I longed for when I was a little kid. And I says, I'm going to be a policeman when I grow up. I'm not going to fight crime. I'm going to just lock up old ladies and things like that who are doing nothing wrong. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, there must be some kind of morale, a test of morale within the police force. And I bet you it's really, really low. And I'd love it to see these coppers like start rebelling, and just because they have a trade union, the police federation. Yeah, I'd love them to say that we're just not going to do this anymore. I'd love, because the government depend on the police to enforce these laws.
Yeah,
and they're basically told, law enforcement, you're not supposed to ask questions about whether the law is just or unjust. You're just supposed to enforce it. It's the law. You just have to enforce it. And I think they're reaching a point now where you can't do that anymore. You can't really take a morally neutral ground over things like this. And I'm hoping at some point you're going to see the police force rebelling again. They have their own 100th monkey thing within them, and every time, you see, when I was arrested last year, I just tried to talk to this cop. I wasn't nasty to this cop who arrested me. He's a nice chap, actually. I went completely peacefully, and it's the weirdest talk I've ever done. I was handcuffed, right? I was in handcuffs, and I was standing by some police cars, and there was these other coppers were basically waiting for a paddy wagon to take me away, and I was talking to them about the New World Order and stuff like that. It's hilarious. It might have gone in, it's information that might have gone in and may do some good. I hope so.
Well, yeah, that's all you can do in it is plant seeds in people's heads. These people have got families. They're not all coppers. They're not from a family of coppers, where there's a big copper house and everybody in families are coppers. They have normal people that are not police. like someone said, they've got mortgages to pay as well.
They're like the rest of us.
It's quite a quandary, isn't it, for somebody?
It is. They're just like they are human beings when they're off duty, just like the rest of us, like people who do any other job. I mean, you do get like families that gravitate towards certain jobs. So there are policemen, like you'll say, I was a policeman, my dad's a policeman, and then the son becomes a copper. You know, it was the same at the hospital. You get like generations of people who are in the NHS and things like that. But you know, when you take the uniform off, you go home, you're like everyone else, and surely there's a part of you, if you're a policeman, you're doing these kinds of jobs, there's a part of you that must think, look, what the hell is happening to this world, and why I'm expected to assist with this madness. I'm expected to uphold this insanity, and I can't do it anymore. I've got to find a way to find some way. Me and my fellow officers have to find some way to just stop enforcing these stupid statutes that are coming from this treasonous government, and go back to English common law, go back to the Constitution, the Magna Carta, and things like that. So that's what I hope will happen, and I see it's got to happen at some point, because it's not anything you can turn away from now. It's not something you can ignore anymore. I mean, we have doctors now who are now being banned. I mean, being banned for giving a medical opinion. There was a horrific situation in Germany just a couple of days ago where this doctor was doing a live stream about the pandemic and how awful it was. The vaccine was bad and stuff like that. These coppers raided his house at gunpoint. They held him at gunpoint. And this was like the bloody Stasi or the Gestapo coming back. And I actually tweeted this. I said, welcome back Stasi. You know, you saw it on the camera during this live stream. Well, these cops, they broke into his house and they were armed to the teeth. And they basically forced him down on the ground at gunpoint. And what were they done? Would they have shot him? Shot him for doing a live stream? A doctor giving an opinion on medical matters can now be shot for saying it? Oh, it's a lot of doctors are speaking out about this, and a lot of people in the health service. And I don't miss being out of that health service now. I really don't miss it. And
I can't imagine, because I don't miss it at all. I don't miss being in hospital at all. I had a situation where I got, in fact, I've got a photo of it somewhere, but on my notes, somebody, because I was on warfarin, and they had to get my INR down to 1.5 before they could do the operation on me. And then I was what they call bridging, getting me back onto me regular warfarin dose. The person, the nurse had written the dates in, and I'm not really blaming the nurse. I think they're just over fucking tired. But she put the dose that I was supposed to have per day, and they'd written down the 29th of August, the 30th of August, the 31st of August, and the 32nd of August.
Oh, dear.
And this were on my notes, you know, and I took a photo of it. I've got a photo of it. It's somewhere on here, but you know, when people are making little mistakes like that don't matter, then there's got to be something wrong. There's got to be something endemically wrong with it.
There is. I mean, the health service is in a terrible state. I watched it get worse and worse and worse during the time I was there, and what you'll find is that the morale in the health service is very, very low, and it's not quite like the police. It's because of low pay and overwork and things like that. But you know, people within the NHS now, as I would be if I was still in there, would have to. I'd be in a position where I'd be forced, essentially, for a matter of conscience, to speak out about what was going on with the COVID-19 pandemic, because I'm still in touch with people on the inside, and they tell me that there's massive wards been put aside for coronavirus cases that are almost empty. It's like the decks have been cleared for action ever since early in the year. Everything was basically, the whole NHS was restructured to reduce the number of inpatients. This means that people who would normally be admitted were basically sent home. They were told, go home, we'll treat you in the community. This was GP referrals, this was clinical referrals and things like that, which meant fewer and fewer inpatients were coming in. Entire wards were completely designated as COVID safe zones. They were basically put into quarantine, which meant you'd have to wear personal protective clothing to go in there, which is not, it's not like a fabric mask. I mean, if you want to protect yourself from an airborne virus, wearing a stupid piece of cloth over your face won't do it. This is basically, you've seen them on TV. They've got like plastic bodysuits, including hoods and gloves. They've got like proper masks with filters, like a gas mask, goggles, or like a visor. You know, that's what you need to do if you need to protect yourself from an airborne virus. And this all costs billions. I mean, there's those Nightingale hospitals. They had ITU beds and stuff like that. This costs like billions and billions. It costs about $1.5 billion to equip one of these Nightingale hospitals. They've hardly been used. And did you see that thing in Liverpool? What's happened in Liverpool? Because there was the army was sent in there to test people. They did a massive testing program where they took school kids and they were like testing them for COVID-19. And everyone expected there'd be like pandemic levels. Because this is a pandemic. Pandemic is a word that it's a Greek origin. It derives from a Greek term that means all the people. And this doctor went on to talk radio with a Julia Hartley-Brewer show. Dr. Claire Craig, her name is, if you want to check her out. And she was just saying this is absolutely ridiculous. The results came back less than 5% of people. Less than 5% of these kids are COVID-19 positive, and that includes the people who had the disease and got over it, and therefore have the immunity. They have the antibodies. So why on earth is the government calling this a pandemic? It's got to be over 20% for them to call it a pandemic. And well, she's not been back on the news since. I don't think they'll allow her back.
I don't know if you're aware of, but a lady called Emma Kenny, who you usually see on, there'll be a documentary about a serial killer. Well, she's the psychologist on that. She's usually the psychologist. She's a youngish woman with long red hair. Emma Kenny, her name is. And so she's on TV a lot, and so she's got a lot of following. And she is just been going mad about COVID since it started, really, saying it's nonsense. This is a psychologist. And I think she's must have just given up on a TV career now, because she's just been constantly tweeting about COVID and how it's nonsense and how it's all being blown out of proportion, and how businesses have been destroyed, and like you said, the heart's been ripped out of the country. It really has been ripped out. There's no Christmas this year. They're doing whatever they can to try to make it feel like it is. Tesco are getting into trouble with parents by saying there's no naughty list this year. Because it's 2020, there's no naughty list this year, and then all parents going, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" Now I can't I've got no excuse to not buy my kid whatever they ask me for Christmas, even though I can't afford it because I lost my job or I'm on furlough and we're just about covering bills and stuff. It's horrendous. It's a horrendous situation, but. Back anyway, I don't know if you were aware of her, but if you are, then if you're not, then follow her name, Emma Kenny.
Right, now I've not heard of her, but she sounds very interesting. And I mean, like many people who are prominent people, celebrities who speak out in this way, they get jumped upon. I mean, it used to be like the ones who were sort of supposedly racist. They were the ones who were originally targeted. People like Mel Gibson. But now it's like people who just say, well, maybe the pandemic's a bad thing. Maybe we shouldn't do this. And then they're treated. They're saying, what you often get is, people in your position who have a lot of followers and everyone who knows have a responsibility to tell the truth, not foolish conspiracy theories. That's what you'll get. You'll get something like that. And then they'll suddenly find themselves cancelled, cancel culture, things like that. And so it takes a lot of guts for these celebrities actually to speak out, because they face these challenges that the rest of us don't, because everyone knows who they are. I mean, David Icke is the obvious example. he's like, I mean, he's been banned from almost everywhere now. He's been banned from Australia. I don't know what they're going to do with the United States. It all depends. If Biden pulls off this fraud, then no doubt he'll be banned from there as well. He's been banned from YouTube. Alex Jones has been banned from YouTube and everywhere. David Icke's been banned from Twitter recently. They're shutting you off from social media. I myself have had my my viewing count has dropped, which means I've been my profile's been reduced deliberately. I'm sure this show will have the same fate. I mean, you'll still get viewers. They're not technically banning you. You'll just be.
We're down by about. I think the last time I looked, we're down by about 40%.
Yeah, mine's about the same, 40 to 50%. It's because we produce borderline content.
Yes. You know, although I got one of my other YouTube accounts, I got Richard D. Hall's the Bang at Manchester video up on there, and I just found out today that that's been removed by YouTube. So that's on one of my other YouTube accounts.
Oh man, that means it'll probably have been banned from Richard's own channel if it's been banned from yours. I mean, I don't know if they'll get round to it, but I think Richard needs.
It's been banned. He couldn't get it up on YouTube. All he said on his website that you know, anybody can download and upload this to just don't monetize it. So I thought, well, why not? And I got I think the last time I looked, it had got 2,000 views on a channel that I just simply made up and put a few things on. I put a few old 9/11 stuff bits on and stuff like that, and I also put that on. So at least 2,000 people have seen it. So no, I did my bit, but it's got banned inevitably in end.
That's all right. You did something. That's good. I mean, of course, these things do get banned. Richard, I remember actually, Richard now only has the videos on his website. You've got to download them or watch them on his website. And that's happening everywhere now. I mean, I don't have my own like website, but what I do is I'm on alt tech platforms now. I'm on Stellar, I'm on Minds, Gab, BitChute, and Library. I mean, it's really great. There's some fantastic alternative free speech platforms now. BitChute is like a free speech YouTube, and Gab is like a free speech Twitter, and there's Minds, which is kind of a free speech Facebook, and there's several other alternatives to these as well. And I take my hat off to the alt tech people, you know, people who are savvy enough to build these amazing websites where people can go, because you can't put all your eggs in the YouTube, Twitter, Facebook basket anymore, because they get fact checked.
And they get removed as well. I mean, it's almost as if, I'd love a return to the old days of the old forum.
Oh yeah, the old PHPB forums. I love those. Yeah, I've still got one. I still run it.
I've got one.
Old time's sake. Yeah.
Raconteurs news one. I think it's still there. If you search Raconteurs news forum, you'll find it. But I don't go on it very often. But that was the way to communicate, because what would happen is somebody would reply to something, and somebody would post something, and everybody would see it. Everybody. No, it won't be restricted from anybody at all. Every user that was interested in whatever that forum was about would see it, right? Now, if you do something on Facebook, you know, what you're going to get? About 5% of people are going to see it.
Yeah.
5% of people are going to see what you know. Whereas on the forums, it was all there, and you could look at what you wanted, and you could disagree. They could argue underneath. And I remember being on forums arguing until about 5 o'clock in the morning and saying,
"Oh, it's fantastic!" You know,
yeah, my missus, I'll be up into bed just as soon as I've won this argument on the internet. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely adored being on these. I absolutely adored the old internet in the old days. I'm starting to sound nostalgic about those days, but it was really good because we had the original David Icke forum, which was like one of these old forums. And of course, because it wasn't a global corporation like Facebook, there was no fact checking. People just said what they thought, and if you were talking a load of rubbish, someone would just tell you so. And we could have that again. And if people were talking rubbish, they could say so. For example, you know, the night of the bang, Richard D. Hall's video about that documentary about the Manchester bombing. Now, if he's wrong, if that's all wrong, let as many people see it as possible, and they'll be able to explain why it's wrong. Same with me, same with you. I mean, I leave my comments box open. I have loads of skeptics in my comments box, and I welcome them. I've got some really dedicated hate followers, I really do.
Oh,
So they comment, and they comment on everything I do, and so long as they're not excessively obnoxious, I allow them to. And I explain to them why I think they're wrong. And I do entire videos replying to these people. And that's the way it should be. That's how a civilization works. It works through free exchange of information. We don't have that now.
I don't have that problem, you see. What people do is they'll troll me a little bit. Then they'll find out I've only got one leg, and then they'll just go and they'll leave me alone. I don't know what it is. Probably they're probably feeling a bit guilty or something. But no. Yeah, that's usually what happens to me. Listen, we've got about 34 minutes, about half an hour, just over half an hour left. We've not talked UFOs at all yet.
Oh my God! Yeah, what an oversight.
The UFO scene, has it just gone with the COVID? Or the little greys have they got COVID? Have they brought it? Well, I mean, what's new at the moment?
Well, the UFO scene has basically gone the way of every other scene. It's retreated online. Now, this doesn't mean that it's obviously the conferences have been cancelled across the world. There's these big American conferences. I wanted to go to one of the big American conferences. I've never been to one, but I mean, I've got the money. You see, I saved up the money to go. I just need one of the conferences to actually happen, and then I can go to it. And I want to go with Miles and Colin and my other friends. And I really, really would love to go to that. I'd be in my element there. I really, really would.
Which one are you thinking about going to, though?
I was hoping to go maybe to the Roswell Festival, because I really should visit Roswell. I've written books about Roswell, and I've written like a novel, my novel of disclosure, and I should visit the actual place. And
yeah, you've written books. Tell people about your books as well.
Yeah, sure. I've written lots of books. I'm a bit writer. I've written 5 novels and numerous short stories, but this is the one I most recommend, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. This is basically a book. It's just fiction. It's just a story, but it's about the kind of things that Jason and I talk about. It's about what would happen if we got the truth instead of lies. What would happen? So it really got me thinking about whether I would, what the world would be like if that happened. How would it happen? What effect would it have? Things like that. And eventually I came up with a fictional scenario about how it could happen. And it resulted in that book. And what's more, there are 2 sequels as well, Roswell Revealed and Roswell Redeemed. So it's a trilogy.
How much is that book?
£10.
£10. Well, send me one.
I can send you a signed one if you like. Yeah.
And I'll send you a signed G-string.
Oh, lovely. Oh, I'll wear that with pride.
No, I'd love to read it. I know Andy were reading them. I don't know if you're in touch with Andy. I mean, it's well documented that he's not in touch with me, but I don't know if you're in touch with Andy. But he
for a while, yeah.
He was reading them books, and he highly recommended them. Somebody asked me as well, because I did this. I've always done this. It's ever since I think I had you've mentioned in Gary Heseltine when he were on, and my greatest question ever. I asked Gary Heseltine what his favourite coloured UFO were.
What did he say?
Peach.
They come in all kinds. I mean, of UFOs. Obviously, they come from many different sources and many different species. There's a virtual taxonomy of these aliens now, different kinds of greys and Nordics and mantids and things like that. You see,
craft, UFO craft.
But I'll tell you something, Jason. That the world of UFOs has gone along, has continued even through the lockdown, and in fact, there was actually a bit of a flap in the south of England a couple of months ago. Now, some of this could be explained by people going to bed later at night because they didn't have jobs to go to, but it wasn't quite like that. I mean, I covered it a little bit in detail because several people were sending me videos. There was one lady I know from Cornwall sent me a video, a photo that was taken by her son. She got 2 sons, and they live like a little way away along the coast, and they both took photographs of this object. And so basically because of the direction in, they could roughly triangulate to find out where it was. It was like about 5 miles offshore or something like that. And I look at the photograph. Obviously, you can't tell much from a photograph, but it was like two large blotches, and they didn't look like aircraft lights. There was no airports in the area. And I said, do you often see these sorts of lights appearing? I mean, is it regular? And she said, no, completely out of the blue. There was very, very significant UFO activity a few months ago in the south of England, above normal, I would say. And of course, it's still going on. I mean, there's still sightings are being reported. I interviewed Dave Hodrian, the ufologist. I interviewed him yesterday, and we had a discussion. And he's still getting calls to his organization, BUFOG. I think you mentioned them earlier on, the Birmingham UFO group. They're still very active. They're not meeting. They're not having meetings because they can't. But online, they're very active. They're still getting people phoning them up saying, this is happening. So, yeah, it's the aliens are still visiting us, lockdown or no lockdown. And there's been some other weird stories around. Have you heard about that strange thing they found in America? It's like they found a kind of monolith-like structure. Have you heard about
that? I may have somewhere in the back of my mind, but fill us in.
It's a really weird thing, actually. And I've just written an article about it, actually. It's Utah, USA. And this is weird because this was the Utah Department of Public Safety. And they were in a helicopter flying over this desert. And they were counting sheep. And they didn't fall asleep, but they were just because they were flying a helicopter. But they suddenly realized, they looked down and they realized there was something beneath them. And it was like this strange object that was embedded in the ground. It was like it was a big silvery metallic thing. It was like oblong, but then from the side, but you could see it's actually triangular in shape and plan. So it's like a Toblerone chocolate bar, the box, which it comes in. And it's about 10 to 12 feet high, sticking out the ground. And they said, this is a bit like the monolith in the film and the book 2001: A Space Odyssey. Do you remember that? The film where the monkeys are like dancing around this weird thing. And so they went down, they took photographs of it and things like that. And it's a bit of a mystery where it came from. I mean, it's right at the bottom of a ravine. It's like hidden so that you can't actually see it. You couldn't see it from the ground unless you were really close. And you couldn't even really see it from the air if you flew above it. So it might have been there a long time and no one's noticed it. The helicopter just happened to fly over the top of it and they managed to see it. It's in a very remote area. There's no one living there. There's no roads for miles and miles and miles. So it's a bit of a mystery about what it is and how it got there. And
well, I mean, it is a huge continent that did have people before, it were invaded, and we started sending our prisoners there. So it's like the Aztecs and stuff like that. There are things that we can't explain. There are things that we can't just because we of the limitations of what we believe to be possible, and so yeah, it's no fucking hell. I think I'm having a stroke. It's no surprise that there's something there in the US.
It might turn out to be man-made. I mean, it could be. It could be. Someone suggested it's just a work of art, in which case they're not exactly putting it in a public gallery. I mean, if I made a work of art, I wouldn't put it somewhere where no one could see it. But it could turn out to be man-made. I mean, there are, of course, you mentioned the Aztecs, and there are lots of other civilizations pre-Columbian in the Americas, which produced amazing structures. Some of them are real mysteries to this day, especially in stone. This could be a metallic structure they created, or it could be a modern hoax, or it could be something a bit more esoteric. Now, more analysis will tell. You just have to go to, visit it and maybe take a little sample, like it's a little sliver, and cut it off and then analyze it. Because they can tell an awful lot. If it's metal, you can tell an awful lot from metal. Because you in the film Patient 17, it's a very good film if you've not seen it. It's a documentary about a guy who has an alien implant, and Dr. Roger Lear, the surgeon who deals with this sort of thing, extracts it in an operation and analyzes it, and they find out by measuring the type of metal it is, that it didn't come from this Earth. I mean, the scientist who looks at it says, "Oh, this must be a meteorite or something," and then. But you see, it's like a little splinter, but it's inside this guy's body, and he's had abductions. He's had aliens coming and abducting him, and so it's like it's something they put inside him, and it's not made in this. It's not made on Earth. It's not even from this solar system. It's just incredible. Now, if they could do that with this monolith, they could like go there, visit it, take some samples, test it. If it turns out that it has the same properties, it's one of these. It's like a weird alloy that's not made anywhere, then perhaps you could just maybe realize that perhaps this is something the aliens have left behind.
Or maybe it's something they're using now.
It could be that this could be like the disclosure trigger. I always go on about disclosure, but I know people. I can see the public comments, and I haven't been able to address any of them or read any of them because I've been talking to Jason. But someone mentioned something about disclosure earlier on. I just caught it out of the corner of my eye, and
yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Well,
yeah, but it was a while ago now. But it could be that this could be something that will lead to a public acknowledgement of this presence, and we've already had them admit that, like. Since 2017, we've had UFO footage out there that the government admitted is real. It could be they'll admit that they've got decisive physical evidence of such things. It could be if Trump is in a really sticky situation with the courts, and it looks like Joe Biden is going to take over, he's going to get away with his trick. If I was in his position, I'd just go on TV and I'd said, okay, if I'm going to be dragged out of this White House, kicking and screaming by the Secret Service, right? Before I go, UFOs are real, and we known about it. We got the Roswell wreckage here. I'll let you all see it, and just imagine that.
I can imagine that, but I can imagine.
I can see him doing that. I can literally see Trump doing that.
But I can't see the media covering it at all. I mean, they'd be told, wouldn't they? I mean, if they're going to drag him out, it's not going to be on TV. The revolution, as they say, won't be televised.
Well, it's amazing that even within the mainstream media, there are limits to what they can suppress. I mean, very so often there's a chink in the armor. I mean, it's like that cold fusion scandal that happened in 1989. And that was very interesting because it was revealed these chemists came out and revealed that they managed to create free energy in a test tube, almost no effort at all, in a very simple process. It's like an electrolysis experiment. It's the kind of thing you do. Kids do this at school, and they managed to create free energy. And the people who knew this, they knew this happened because this same experiment was done in 1926. And the scientists called it the anomalous heat effect, and they were very careful not to publish it. And when these two scientists, Stanley Pons and Martin Fleischmann, came out in 1989, and they were on the news talking about it. You could just imagine that the hair that was being torn out, going. I mean, you and I don't have any hair, but if we did, we could probably imagine it. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And they couldn't suppress it. This got into the mainstream media, and all hell broke loose. And they suddenly had to do a massive damage limitation exercise to get that genie back in the bottle. So that the mainstream media is not perfect. It's not all powerful. It's not omnipotent. Things go in ways that they don't want them to go. I mean, Richard E. Hall was talking about the shooting of what's her name, Joe Cox. Yeah. And that guy, the guy Thomas Mayer, the guy was the patsy was not supposed to survive. He was supposed to die in a staged suicide. Do you remember? Yeah. But it didn't work. We went down the wrong road, and they had to arrest him and give him like a show trial. So some things go against their will. Not everything goes the way they want it to go.
Yeah, but they seem to be able to cover the tracks a lot easier. So, a lot easier than you would hope. When something does go, just think about the amount of things that that have been government or shadow government sponsored that have gone on. Right, they're getting away with it every single time. It either gets buried, like Tunisia, for God's sake. Why is there not 26 British people were killed on beach in Tunisia, shot dead? There's not a memorial every year because they wanted to shut that down. They needed it gone.
I mean, there's been you and I have talked many times on this show, and I talk on all kinds of shows about the various cover-ups that have taken place, and also very often there is a plan B if something goes wrong. However, there doesn't seem to be any plan C, and their luck is running out. They're not perfect. They're not going to get away with this forever. At some point, their 9 lives are going to be up. They're in a system that's not perfect, which is the mainstream media is. It's a very effective mind control operation, but it's not 100% perfect. And every so often, it's going to make massive mistakes. And right now, it's in a really, really bad place in terms of the mistakes it's in a position to make.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It is in a bad place, but I think it's reorganizing itself. I think we're in a bad place. I think if we go back 3 or 4 years, it were in a really bad place. I mean, we voted Brexit. Trump got elected, but via God knows how. I remember being on this show. It must have been about 5 years ago, and we had a guy he was a money guy, and we always had record numbers when he were on. And Sirius Report, I think it was called. But I used to call him the CIA report because I thought he were a bit dodgy. And I remember saying to him, "Is there going to? Can you envisage a world where we've got Boris Johnson is the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Donald Trump is the President of the United States?" And he said, "Yeah." He says it will happen. It will happen.
It's weird because, like in 2015, you asked me that. If you asked me that question in 2015 or early in 2015, I would have said not a chance. I said that's never going to happen, and I was wrong. I made predictions which never came true because I didn't know the 2016 effect was going to happen. Then 2016 happened, and all hell, everything changed in 2016, and since then, of course, the deep state has tried to claw back the ground it's lost quite considerably. It is really it's dug in and it's tried to reach a fallback position, and it has, and whether it will succeed, whether it will actually achieve. I mean, I don't know whether it will actually get back completely all the ground it lost. I mean, this is, as I said, this is completely unpredictable. What we're going through now is not something I could ever even try. I wouldn't even try to guess about what's going to happen with the election in the US, with the lockdown. But when change comes, it could come very quickly, and it could come in a form that no one expects. Oh, Brian Clare. Hey, Brian. How are you? I know Brian Clare.
Yeah, I know Brian Clare. I've tried to get him on a couple of times, but we always seem to miss each other. Is Donald Trump a time traveler? Now, I was just about to say, what about the conspiracy theory that perhaps when the Back to the Future, remember Back to the Future, the film? Well, the furthest it went were 2015. I think it was October 2015. Now, do you think that they were like, when that happened and they went over that there was some sort of wobble in the space-time continuum, and we got all this different stuff going on? It's a theory.
It's an odd thing, actually, because I really like those films, and one of the characters, one of the bad guys in the second one, Biff. Do you remember he's the bully at school in the first one, and then he's based on Donald Trump. Now, I didn't know who Donald Trump was in those days because Trump wasn't really famous outside the United States until he got into politics.
Yeah, because in the second one, it's pretty similar to Trump Towers, isn't it?
Yeah, that character is based on Donald Trump, who in those days was just a businessman. He wasn't involved in politics. I mean, he's always talked about running for president, but no one ever thought he'd ever do it. But it's weird because those films also contain a lot more information. There's like very strange encoded. It's almost like an encoded prediction. Do you remember like 9/11 appears in certain scenes?
Yeah.
And there's several other examples. The Simpsons is another one that's often mentioned, which is of course a cartoon series. It's very good, actually. It's a very funny cartoon series. But there are several things in it. It's almost like they know what's going to happen. They know
there is that.
in advance.
Groening, the people say Matt Groening's, he saw things from The Simpsons, but we're getting back to the Future. There's the Twin Pine Mall that he turns up to first, and then afterwards it's called the Single Pine Mall. I think is it yeah Single Pine Mall. And he turns up at 1:06. There's a digital clock there, and he turns up at 1:16, which if you turn it upside down is 9/11.
Yeah.
There's loads and loads of stuff encoded in there. Yeah, the Illuminati cards that they're in The Simpsons. There's tons and tons of stuff.
It's really quite remarkable that some of the weird coincidences. For example, in the film The Matrix, you see a clip of Neo's passport, the main character, and it expires on September 11th, 2001, and this was like a 1999 film.
Yeah.
It's where Keanu Reeves' character in that, which of course is always, there's a lot of mysticism associated with those series of films. The Wachowskis, the directors, knew a lot about that sort of thing, and there's other examples as well. There's like there was a film that came out more recently, which was like I can't remember what year it was, but it was before the event it predicts, because in one of the scenes you see the word Sandy Hook. Now, Sandy Hook, of course, is a school where allegedly there was a mass shooting. I think in 2015 there was a mass shooting there.
2012, maybe. I think it was
2012. Sorry, 2012. Yeah. And of course, ever since then, a lot of people, Alex Jones and many others, have written about Sandy Hook, about how it doesn't quite add up. The facts don't quite add up with what happened there. And with the case of Sandy Hook, it was almost, you could say that if someone planned, for example, to fake some kind of event at that school, the Sandy Hook you see in the movie may have been implanted in order to prepare people psychologically in some way through some kind of subliminal process.
It's just occurred to me. I remember what it was. It was they were looking at a map, and they were moving the finger across the map, and the camera were following them, and they went past the Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I can't actually remember what the program itself, but they saw it was on a map. Sandy Hook was on a map. It wasn't mentioned or anything, but it was just there. It was on the map. Yeah,
it's extraordinary, and it's extraordinary that and I can't remember how long before 2012 it was. I know it was in 2012 now that it happened. I know, because it was just before the Mayan calendar thing. But why was it that this appeared? It was maybe a year before or a few months before. It's like it was being planned in advance. Sophia Smallstorm is there's several people. There's James Fetzer. He wrote a lot of interesting stuff about Sandy Hook. But Sophia Smallstorm was one of the most interesting researchers into the Sandy Hook event, because she comes from that area. She grew up there. She was born and grew up in that area around that school, Newtown.
Is that the one we need to talk about, Sandy Hook? Is she in that one?
I think she is. Yes, she's done several lectures about Sandy Hook, and her insights are amazing because she comes from that area. She knows some of the families that were supposedly involved because she was born and raised in that area. And she said she used to ride her bike in that area, and she says it doesn't make sense. There's so many things wrong with it. It operates on different levels, and it's like what Richard D. Hall has discovered about Manchester. It's a similar thing. It's that, unlike with 9/11, where they literally had to kill people and destroy planes and demolish buildings or turn them into dust, as Dr. Judy Wood discovered. They now don't. It's like they just have to create some kind of fake media event and pretend that this happened and people were killed.
Yeah.
And in the case of what Richard's done, is like he's researched this in great detail. He's even tried to track down some of the people who supposedly were victims and their families. They can't be found, which shouldn't be the case. I mean, if in real events, for example, remember the Herald of Free Enterprise, it was a ship that sank.
Yeah.
A cross-channel ferry sank. The people were on TV all the time. The survivors, they were interviewed extensively.
Yeah,
and they could be background checked. They could be found by the media. The people involved in this, most of the people involved in this Manchester bombing, they're nowhere to be seen. And there was one guy who supposedly was crippled. You see him going around in a wheelchair saying he was injured in the blast, and now he's still in a wheelchair. Turns out he was using a wheelchair beforehand because he had like he had a herniated disc, which is a horrible condition, very painful, debilitating.
Yeah.
And so he's basically the only one who has any public profile, probably because of his disability. It's like maybe that's why the trolls leave you alone, Jason, and they do the same with it.
I don't think that's it. I think
it has some kind of credibility of being disabled, doesn't it? In that case,
I did get this one who said, "Fucking hell, I remember you. You're Jack Chit from back in day, and I remember you. You're a wanker. You're a wanker. You were a wanker then, and you're still a wanker now." And then a couple of times later, he commented a couple of other times, and then he went. Well, what happened to you shouldn't happen to anybody, even though you're a wanker. You didn't deserve that. That, you know what I mean? It was just like fucking. I didn't ask for it. I'm not bothered. He could have just called me a wanker. I'm not bothered.
Oh no, you develop quite a thick skin actually when you have a public profile. It's like, I don't mind people disagreeing with me. People disagree quite vehemently with me on my channel, but there's some people I block, and I have some trolls that I literally do block all the time because they're just abusive and things like that. But it's something that we should be able to discuss openly. I mean, Alex Jones, and you remember he stopped talking about the Sandy Hook thing because he was sued. There was a class action lawsuit by some of the people claiming to be the parents of the children.
I saw the dissertation.
Because apparently, he apparently gave away their addresses or something like that in one of his programs.
I watched the dissertation. He did. He went. What do they do? Is it a dissertation where they go before a trial and they go and give evidence? I saw the one that he did on Sandy Hook, and I thought I was a bit disappointed because I thought, he was sort of acquiescing and saying, they are. It was real. It was something that happened. But yeah, deposition. That's it.
Yeah, it was
Kevin Street.
Yeah. And now he doesn't talk about it. He doesn't mention it anymore. But
he probably can't.
He probably might have made some deal about that. But the thing is, what the issues he was raising were perfectly legitimate. What the questions he was raising were perfectly legitimate. We should be able to discuss these things without having videos banned. The Manchester bombing video shouldn't have been taken off your channel. It's like it's becoming more common. I mean, David Baddiel has done the world a great disservice. I don't know if you know him, but he was like tackling Holocaust revisionism on he did this documentary, which of course was on the BBC. They have to put these things on the BBC, and it got all the funding about how, and there was a lot of how awful people were for disagreeing with the official story. And I mean, whatever your opinions on that particular event, I mean, it's not. I mean, I think legally you can't even talk about it because.
Which event are we talking about? Sorry, I missed that. We're reading comments.
Oh, it's the Holocaust. This Holocaust revisionism.
Oh, right, okay,
right. And I mean, I think it's something in some countries you can't even talk about because people watching this place, if you say the wrong thing, some people could go to jail. But I always say my response to that is, let people say what they think. Because Baddiel was going up to, he did this thing where he did this interview with the chairman of Facebook or something, and the chairman of Facebook was saying, do you know these people are coming on? There's some people coming on your platform denying the Holocaust. And he said, well, we sort of we let people say this. And it was very dismaying because Baddiel wasn't actually saying it, but he was advocating for censorship of these views. I mean, I personally, I'm not a Holocaust revisionist myself, but I do believe that people should be allowed to speak openly about it. I think there should be a free and open discussion on this. It should be on any subject.
Look at fucking David Baddiel. He's been the unfunny one in two fucking double acts, right? He's a professional. He's sorry, but he's become what I would call a professional Jew. So he's become anything's anti-Semitic. He wants the Y word removed from the fucking, no, so nobody can do that. Yeah, you watch Tottenham and they call themselves the Yid Army, and the fans are all, going Yid Army, Yid Army. Don't bother me. I don't care.
I know. I mean, it's like, Woody Allen. I like Woody Allen because Woody Allen sort of like takes the mickey out of this sort of thing, and he's a Jewish comedian who actually is funny. And in one of his characters, I remember in one of the films, he's going on and on about anti-Semitism. It's obviously meant to take the mickey out of oversensitivity towards anti-Semitism. In other words, very completely harmless and innocuous things are labeled anti-Semitic, because this is basically what's been used to ban David Icke, because he's been banned from Australia because supposedly he's against Jews, when in fact David, not only does he not blame Jews for the New World Order, he goes out of his way to state unequivocally that Jews are not to be blamed for the New World Order and they're completely innocent. Yet despite that, he's labelled an anti-Semite and he's banned from Australia.
Well, can I tell you a Jewish joke?
Go, of course. I don't. You know what I think of political correctness.
A Jewish joke, right? That only Jews will get, right? So one Jewish guy walks up to another Jewish guy and says to him, "How's business?" And the Jewish guy says, "Great."
No, I don't. I'm not Jewish, so maybe I didn't get it.
There you go. You don't get it. Anyone who's Jewish, you'll get it. But if you're not Jewish, you won't get it.
All right, that explains it.
It's to do with it's to do with the stereotype that Jewish blokes are always complaining and saying, "Oh no, it's that, it's that." I think that's what it is. But yeah.
It's obvious. I mean, funny enough, I did a video called Jews, it was addressing this, because people are always approaching me saying, what do you think of the Jews, this theory that the Jews are behind the New World Order and stuff like that. So I made a video called Jews, which was explaining everything about it, because I happen to think that Jews are not to be blamed for the New World Order. I agree with David Icke. Guess what? It was banned from YouTube for hate speech. It's now only available on BitChute and all the platforms.
It wouldn't surprise me, because we've said the word Jewish and Jews and Holocaust. It wouldn't surprise me if this gets a strike. But I mean, there's been no fucking anti-Semitism here. It's just been a chat, as somebody put on one of the comments once, that this is the pub in your pocket, a pub for critical thinkers that you can put in your pocket. So,
all right. Well, I'll have to take the blame, because I'm the one who brought it up, because I mentioned David Baddiel and about how he seems to be tacitly supporting censorship.
David fucking Baddiel. I mean, who is he? Who is he? I mean, all these comedians, who are they? These so-called comedians, there isn't any. Can you think of somebody funny at the moment? A comedian that is at the moment who is funny?
No, because they're all terrified of offending people. They literally cannot make jokes because the joke might offend this person or that person. And so the only funny things are things like the Carry On films that were made before all this cultural Marxism and this obsession with political correctness.
The only guy I find funny is Noel MacDonald, and he's an American guy, and I stole that Jewish joke from him, and he's not a Jewish guy, but he does his own live stream and stuff. He's Noel MacDonald. You've just got to subscribe to him and watch him, and watch some of his old stuff as well. Absolutely superb. Just he gets away with it. You see, he gets away with it because he's got this way about him. But anyway, I think we're just about at the end of our chat, Ben. It's been marvellous to have you on.
Thanks. 2 hours flies by, doesn't it?
It does. It does. You know what? It does. And to quote an Irish radio presenter, I'm not blowing smoke up your arse, but you're somebody I can sit and talk to. And some people it's difficult. It's difficult. You get a difficult guest. Yourself, you've interviewed people. You get a difficult guest who perhaps don't say as much as you want them to say, and you're always trying to think of things to different ways to go down because they cut you halfway down. So, but no, it's always great to have you on, Ben.
Yeah, you pushed me and I just roll downhill. That's right.
Which is why I like getting Sanders on, because he takes my job away from me. And if I can if I can get you and Ben on, you and Neil on before Christmas, then I shall certainly do that. Anyway, thank you to everybody that's been in the chat room. Anything you want to say, Ben, before we leave? Anything you want to promote?
Just basically my website, Hapanwo, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. I mean, there's loads. I've got several different websites, but if you put HPANWO, Hapanwo, into Google, you'll find it. Please do read this book, £10 from all good outlets. While away those hours stuck at home through the lockdown. And I hope to see you again soon. It's been great to talk to Jason. Great. I think this is about the 6th or 7th time I've been on your show, and it's I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and we love having you on as well. It's been a great chat room as well. People giving you respect and saying thanks. So thank you to everyone who's been watching in the chat room. And thanks to everyone, you all who've been watching. I'll be back on Friday. I didn't come back last Friday, for the After Dark because I had some problems with this computer, but hopefully I'll be back on Friday for After Dark. So thanks for watching tonight. Take it easy, and we'll see you on Friday, hopefully.